Well, I'm going to tell you some tales of a very special land indeed. A land that is known as England. I think you've heard of it. I live on an island of pure delight, inhabited by giants, rocks of might, with beautiful spring brooks and shallow pure streams, flowers in abundance, bees in old trees. Albion they've called it, England they say now, a treasure it is. History of man, not as barren as a desert, not as cold as the poles, not as humid as a rainforest, a paradise unfolds, hills and mountains, brooks and streams. If love be a landscape, then surely this here be my dream. Everything awakens, alert and joyful. The birds begin to stir, and innumerable insect people. Deer quietly withdraws into leafy hiding places. The dew vanishes, flowers spread their petals, every pulse beats high, every life cell rejoices. The very rocks seem to thrill with life. The whole landscape glows like a human face in a glory of enthusiasm. And the blue sky, pale around the horizon, bends peacefully down over, all like one vast flower. So extravagant is nature with her choicest treasures, spending plant beauty as spends sunshine, pouring it forth into land and sea, garden and desert. And so the beauty of lilies falls on angels and men, birds and bees, wolves and sheep, bears and squirrels. Always fond of flowers, attracted by their external beauty and purity. Now my eyes were opened to their internal beauty, all alike revealing the glorious traces of the thoughts of God and leading on and on into the infinite cosmos. My eyes never closed on the plant glory I had seen. Louis McDara stood on top of the South Downs, and he admired every plant. He admired the beauty of this time, the time as we approach May Day or Beltaine, a time when so much plant glory can be seen. And among the many buds proclaiming May, decking the fields in holiday array, striving who shall surpass in bravery, mark the fair blooming of the hawthorn tree, who finely clothed in a robe of white, fills full the wanton eye with May's delight. And as he gazed at the lone hawthorn tree and all the plants, he started to feel there was something else. There was something inside of him that was missing. He needed to go deeper into the landscape. He needed to explore the inner landscape. And so he started to walk across the downs, the undulating hills, the beauty of the countryside. And in the distance, he saw a very large man, a man of magnificent proportions. Of course, he was a giant. But not just any giant. He had a spear in both hands. His name was the Long Man of Wilmington. And when he approached him, he noticed there were animals all around him. And he asked the giant, he said, "Tell me, what power do you have over those animals?" The giant laughed. Ha, 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 ha. He lifted up both spears and thumped them upon the ground, and instantly things started to shake, things started to move, and even more animals appeared. And the giant said to Louis, he said, every human in this entire globe has an animal assigned to them that will guide them, that will help them. And Louis looked and saw a magnificent deer approach him. A deer that he could have sworn he had known all his life, a deer that maybe he had known for many lifetimes. It shone like a star, resplendent, effervescent. Everything about it made his pulse beat with joy. And him and the deer they went. They went across the hills to continue their journey. They ducked down into the valleys, and then they appeared in a wonderful woodland. Now, you may believe in fairies, you may believe in giants, you may believe in the mythology of all of the countryside and the spirits that come alive, but this place was something else, and I can assure you it does exist. There was actually a whole grove of old, gnarled, twisted trees that were about 2,000 years old. A place where many battles had been fought, and the kings that had died had come alive again into these huge, gigantic trees. One of the trees had a distinctive hollow, and as he approached the tree, he went into the tree. His eyes started to adjust. The cavernous walls dripped water, and as he looked down, he saw beetles burying, woodlice scurrying, springtails jumping, slugs slumping, maggots munching, spiders crunching, in the soil amongst the rocks, beneath the leaf litter, buried or not, a web of life in the darkness, feeding the soil, glad to enrich us. For friend or foe, it matters not. Without the mini beasts of the earth, survival just stops. And so as he went further into the tree, he started to hear a sound that you've probably heard before, a sound you'll undoubtedly hear again, the sound of double, double, toil and trouble, fire, burn, and cauldron bubble. And once he had reached the centre of the tree, he saw a woman of power. She was gnarled and twisted just like the tree. She was covered from the top of her head to the tips of her toe in a black cloak. And she said, "Hello, Louis. How did you know my name? How could you possibly know my name? I know everyone who enters my land, for I am the lady, the sovereignty itself." And she started to stir a large cauldron, and a single drop fell out of that cauldron and landed into a crystal clear pool of water. Louis looked into the crystal clear pool of water, and then he went into the pool of water. And there he was again, on the downs, on the South Downs. But this time things seemed different. It seemed more beautiful. There was something about every blade of glass, every flower, all that was around him just looked so mesmerizing. He could see it for what it truly was. It was alive. And then suddenly he started to receive visions. The meadows started to be ploughed up. The trees started to be cut down. Instead of grassy tracks, there were large, grey, dark roads and loud machines upon them. He noticed people looking at screens instead of up and around at the countryside. He started having these terrible visions of how the world could be. And then suddenly something even more terrifying happened. Things started to shake, things started to move. The power of the earth itself, the volcanoes, the earthquakes, the tumultuous storms, the power of the earth itself, which made any human invention seem absolutely tiny. For the power of the earth is unstoppable, immovable, something beyond any and all of us. But Louis McDara walked across the path while all of this energy was being released, and he was anchored to the path. He suddenly felt his bones were like rocks. His flesh was like the soil itself. His hair was like the plants upon the soil. His blood was like the rivers and the streams. He felt so connected and so supported. And then he saw her, the goddess herself, the sovereignty of the land, but in her true form, standing tall and proud. And as he looked at her, he remembered the ancient prophecy that was spoken by Merlin himself. A damsel shall be sent from the city of the hoary forest to administer a cure. Once she has practiced her ocular arts, she will dry up the fountains by breathing upon them. Afterwards, as soon as she shall refresh herself with the wholesome liqueur, she will bear in her right hand the forests of Caledon, and in her left the buttressed forts of London. Wherever she shall go, she shall make sulphurous steps, which will smoke with a double flame. The smoke will rouse up the Rutenai and will make food for the inhabitants of the sea. Tears of compassion will overflow her eyes, and the island will be filled with her terrible cries. And as she looked at him, he felt her come towards him. He felt her enter him, and he felt the goddess pulsing within his own veins. And he looked down, and there he saw a beautiful flower, a common flower, a drab plant. And he realized there was nothing he could do about the tumultuous storms, the volcanoes, the earthquakes, and the terrible visions. But he could find his place on this earth and look after the beautiful flowers. And with that vision, he realized he had not left the hill to which he had gazed on. He had just entered the landscape. This sudden splash into pure wildness, baptism in nature's warm heart. How utterly happy it made us. Happy Beltaine, May Day, delightful day. Bright colours play the veil along. Now wakes at morning's slender ray, wild and gay, the blackbird song. Blessed be.